This is Kathy from Gadget Stop 321, and in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at Noodler's Baystate Blue. I'm going to test it in a variety of pins and nib sizes, ranging from a Pilot Extra Fine to a 1.5 stub nib. And one of the things Baystate Blue has going for it is that it's a perfect match for my blue 78G Plus. Now, I'm going to begin with the Extra Fine. This is a 78G Plus with a stainless steel extra fine nib, and I've got several of my 78Gs featured today because this Baystate Blue is known to be an ink that can stain your pen, so that's why I've chosen to use a bunch of my 78Gs. Now, I think I like it in this extra fine, which is unusual. Not many inks are pleasant to use. So on Tomoe River paper, and that's good with these little tight grids. It's good to have a pen and ink combination, a really fine pen and ink combination. Just makes writing in these little tight grids easier. All right. Next, I've got another 78G Plus with a fine nib. And another good thing about these 78Gs is since I have a few of them with different size nibs, I can interchange them. So if I don't want to use the extra fine, I can switch nibs. If I want to use that bright blue pen, I can switch nibs. And I can use whichever size nib I want to in that bright blue pen. This one's a fine. And even more pleasant, but I like the line that extra fine puts down. This bright electric blue just looks good in a really fine line. It looks like a bright blue laser. That's nice, and I technically could have put smooth on that. That's very pleasant. Yeah, I have a feeling this is going to be an ink that I prefer in the finest line possible. Okay, here's the bright blue one. I've got a medium nib in it. This is also a 78G. It's a G plus. This is a bright blue. And this is very smooth. All right. Next, I've got my Kaweco Perkeo all black with a medium nib. I enjoy writing with this pen and this bright blue ink, but I can't think of a practical use. I enjoy writing with it, but it's so bright that I don't think I would want to write notes. Yeah, and that's very smooth. I don't have room to write it, but very smooth. Reading back this super bright blue, I can just tell that's fatiguing on my eyes. I like the extra fine though. Okay, and I haven't written with this pen very much. This is my 78G. It's not a G+, it's the original 78G. It's that teal color, and it's got the broad nib, which is technically an italic nib. It looks like the cursive medium nib that I have on my Metropolitan, but I'm having some issues with it. It needs a little work, and I just haven't taken the time to work on it. I have to apply some pressure to get it to start writing. And you can see on the curve there, I didn't apply quite enough pressure on the curve of the P. I have to consciously apply more pressure than I normally do. And this feels a little more crisp and less stub-like than the cursive medium does. I prefer the cursive medium. I'm not going to write anything on this because this nib is having some issues. Okay, and finally, my Jinhao X750 with a 1.5 stub nib. This is very satisfying to write with, but again, nothing that I can think of a practical use for me using. Oh, it was a little wispy getting started there. But this is a ink. It's just very satisfying to see the ink being applied to the page and it just floating on top of the paper. Okay, I'm going to give that a little time to dry. We'll see. This has a little bit longer dry time than some of the, than an average ink. Okay. Here's the Rhodia paper. The extra fine, I was a little disappointed. On this paper, it's not scratchy, but it's not enjoyable to use for, any length of time. The fine was where it started being pleasant enough that I would, wouldn't mind using it for a lengthy amount of writing. But it's just this ink is so bright, I just feel like a whole page of it would just be too much. But the medium nibs, man, they are just so smooth with that ink. On my 20-pound copy paper, this is not an ink you want to use on poor quality paper. Even on the extra fine, it was too wet. You just barely touch the paper and you can see on each character, you can see where I put the pen down to begin writing. It's a blob of ink. It just gets sucked out of the pen so quickly. So it just spreads too much. And I made a note on my 78G with the broad nib. I was having pen problems. It's just too wet for poor quality paper, and it's pretty bleedy. Bleeds through the paper pretty easily. Let me see on the Rhodia. Yeah, it wants to start coming through on some of the wetter nibs. So, yeah, it's one that's going to bleed. And on my Leuchtturm, let's see, it looks pretty decent. It was very satisfying to write with that stub nib, but it's one in a wetter nib. You can kind of see it wants to start coming through on the Leuchtturm paper. But man, it's a bright blue. And let me see if this is still wet. It looks like it's all dry. So on Tomoe River paper, there's a lot of show through because it's just so bright. It doesn't bleed through, which is a testament to this paper. But It's very bright. I think on a good quality Tomoe River type paper with that extra fine nib, that's my favorite. Maybe writing in a using it as in a planner where you want what you've written to really jump out. All right. And that was Noodler's Baystate Blue. I'm done with the second group of ink samples that I bought. I've got a few other inks that I owned previously that I'm going to go through and test out those. And I might be getting some more ink samples in the near future. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.